Yes.
Yes.
This would be his second. Is he bringing pizza?
No, I forgot. I was willing to order pizza if everybody really wants pizza.
No. Just being facetious.
We have one thing on the agenda tonight to go through the red line, right? Shall
We received a version from the attorney,
Yes.
which is slightly different than the one I sent out because I incorporated Leo's comments and Tony's comments, but didn't send them to the attorney. Just so everyone's aware. I don't think it's a big deal because you have both.
I have both. Well, bigger screen.
I didn't see John's comments until it was too late for me to do anything about it today because I was actually working various points through it today.
Yes, I was working until about an hour ago.
Which one will we use?
I think we should use Chris's.
Yes.
Yeah, we start with, that's a good place to start, Jenny, and then we'll go over and get John's comments.
I agree. So, the real question is, do we want to start with Article 4, or do we want to do all the other articles, make sure everybody got all their comments in, and then hit on 4?
Sure.
Yeah, why don't we do 4 while we're still fresh before we group stale?
What?
Why don't we start with 4 before we get tired?
Okay, let's do it. Good idea.
I'm already tired.
Sorry. So this includes all the things from that we talked about with Steve, primarily.
Well, yeah, and the topics we've been discussing generally in relationship to, as I understood them, the relationship to the town administrator. This is, as I've said, I regard this as a clarification or amplification perhaps of what the town administrator's duties and responsibilities are. But it's a blank slate, work through it.
Okay.
Can I start with a question? At different points, we've talked about the town administrator title versus town manager title. And if maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong in thinking that we decided that it's basically a town manager, but we call it a town administrator. Is that? And should we discuss changing it to town manager? There was some debate about even in the hiring process that the title mattered.
And I believe, to build on that, John's comment was you can call it whatever you want. That there was no driving force to do it one way, that there was no increase in responsibility nor any decrease in responsibility to call it what you wanted.
And I think that's how the statute reads. It's town manager or equivalent position or something like that. Doesn't matter what you call it. There is no town administrator position in state law. There's only a town manager position. But you can slap whatever title you want on it. For whatever like me. So, if it rose by any of the word, it's not sweet.
Right.
But doesn't it change if you change it to town manager? Doesn't it change? I thought somehow
John's answer, I asked him that question directly, and his answer, I believe, was no, it is not.
Right, I think that was true, and I don't know if, so, I guess my question is that-
What we were told when we first ran the commission, you
Right.
have the town manager stuck with the statute, they change the statute, you have to stuck with the change. You make town administrator, then you can, give different duties, responsibilities, and you have to call the town administrator. That's why the first article we did, that's why they did town administrator, because they wanted to specify and change it, they don't have to change it, all have to go with the state law.
Maybe we should ask the question one more time.
So let me ask you what everybody thinks. If we were to change it to town manager, do you think that we would have extra educational duties to try to explain to people why we were making that change? And could we, something we talk about a lot, this deficit of trust and people worried about us, doing things. Would you be concerned that we could create a problem by changing the title? People would perceive that this is kind of like we're amplifying the role, and that some people would just be scared because of that. And I think Leo's point is pretty critical, that if you have the manager title, the statute changes, kind of out of our hands.
That's,
Sorry for trying to say I'm not the middle
Right.
I think that maybe, I guess at some point, we get some comment from the present town council. I think a few of them really don't want to go through this town manager thing, like basically the way it is. Want to be stuck with duties that they don't think should be in. I guess the question is, well, if we want something passed, and county council would go fight to against this change, is that affect what we did, we do? We keep talking about we want something that will pass, and if we get a lot of opposition, that's council would have that effect.
So,
I absolutely agree. I just know that they raised the question, and I wasn't sure if we had ever resolved it, so I just want to make sure that we discussed it again.
Yes, Phil, do you remember was there a huge difference between the term town manager and town administrator? Or did that change things by calling it town manager?
There are present councilors who think that that is a massive change
Well,
and would actively campaign against it.
what's the,
Right,
what
that's
is
right.
the difference?
The town manager has more power than the town administrator. According to the RSA. Even though the way our charter is written, basically limits the RSA for town manager.
Because that's the only RSA. I agree with Leo and Tony, it's just not a change worth considering.
We'll lose the fight.
right. So, does anybody have any issue with, we can do this by consensus or have a vote or something? It seems to me that we've addressed the issue we talked about. I don't see any heavy desire to add any town manager.
You can tell that.
Okay.
You think what?
Now, the title matters.
Then
It's just the title, not the.
oh, yeah, but if you go with the town manager title, you're stuck with state statute. Their definition of what the duties want to be town manager, you're that. If that's changed, you're going to change. That was the big argument. 20 years ago.
Administrator it is. Unless anybody has any serious problem with that. Great. So 4.2 looks like it's predominantly what Steve put in his memo, right? Did you add or delete anything?
No, it's been a while since I looked at this, but my memory, going back to Steve's thing, my memory is that this is basically what Steve had proposed. I don't see this as a major substantive change, except to clarify that the town administrator is supposed to be devoting his full-time attention to his office as a town administrator, and not holding other offices or moonlighting or anything of that nature. John Radigan, the attorney, raised a question about whether town residency should be a condition of the administrator's employment. The way it reads is the administrator need not be a resident of the town or the state at the time of appointment. I think the implication is that at some point they will move to Newmarket. I think our past, the former town administrator did not. He was in Brentwood, if I remember. So he owned property here. There's for his mother and brother, I believe. But in any event, do we want to make that? I think John is just questioning whether or not we want to say the administrator, upon appointment will move to town of Newmarket within the next period of time. I don't know. You don't think that's?
So 2 years ago, I think it was Seabrook was trying to do that, and I think they were told they couldn't. But it was a court case, and it was, because I remember this coming up with the town administrator. We were talking about potentially having that, so that's a requirement of the job.
Yeah.
And I think it was only for emergency services personnel.
Right. I think that's right.
You'd be hamstringing the council on a person maybe looking to,
Have never moved to Newmarket.
across the line.
I don't think we're.
And it's something that the council could ask when they're hiring, or the hiring group can ask when they're hiring, where do you live, are you going to move here? They have to make that decision. I really have a sensitivity to uprooting a family as well, but more than just a town administrator. Yeah. Like husband, kids, it's devastating.
John raised it as a question, so raise it.
Yeah, I think it's good that we're talking about it. I like the way it's written down. It just says if he moves or she moves, the council could reimburse the person for expenses. Speaking of that, do we need to gender neutral this thing, or are we going to leave it as is and stuff like that?
I thought there was language in here saying that somewhere.
Yeah, it's right in the.
Right at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah. You gotta use something, and then you use he or she, and it becomes a little awkward.
Yeah, we use it. Okay, so does anybody have anything else on 4.2?
No, I think it's fine. I think that, as it's been pointed out, the council retains discretion when they hire a town administrator within the broad bounds. Discrimination law can require whatever they want to require.
Great. And the next change is, do you want to do this, Chris, or do you want me to?
No, you're doing great.
All right, so the next change you've asked, or we have proposed, I'll just say it that way, that we have a acting town administrator for up to 120 days instead of 90 days. That seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, I just want to go back for a second to 4.3, because John raised a couple of quick things that I don't think would be controversial.
Okay.
If you look at the first sentence, 1 year after his initial appointment and annually thereafter, John has proposed adding the words at least annually,
Okay.
so that you can have more frequent reviews of the administrator if the council deems that to be appropriate. And then he says in the next sentence, as a part of an annual review, the council administrator, so he's deleting the word such and replacing it with an annual. And then he's adding a new sentence at the end that says more frequent reviews may be conducted when, in the sole discretion of the council, such periodic reviews are desirable. So if the council decides they want to review the town administrator every 6 months, it's just spelled out that they can do that. They can probably do that regardless of whether it's written in the charter, but it doesn't hurt to spell that out. Those are John Madigan's suggestions.
I think those are reasonable suggestions.
Yeah, some flexibility.
Flexibility is good.
All right. So now we're at 4.6. probably easy to just say we deleted the existing section and we've added what we discussed, or a summary of what, pretty much everything we discussed relative to the town administrator's duties.
And here I'm going to talk again.
Okay.
The way Steve had this set up was there was a list of some duties that he pulled out of somebody else's charter. Then at the end there was a catch-all that said such other duties are delegated to the town administrator and to the town manager under the statute, and everything else specified in there. Personally, I thought it was better, at least for our discussion purposes, to spell it all out, point by point, exactly what his responsibilities are. So that's why it's, because it got very cumbersome to edit it, I just deleted the whole thing and replaced it with this whole new section, although there's a fair amount of duplication in it. So that's why this is done the way it's done. I don't think there's any other charter that I've seen that's set up in this much detail. But I thought it would be helpful for everyone to see exactly what it is a town administrator does. And for our purpose, at least for discussion, to see. Now, the town administrator, I think we all believe, is actually doing all this stuff, except it's not laid out on the charter as it stands today. So that's why I call this a clarification, really. Putting stuff down in writing that he's actually already doing.
So the only, one of the things I noticed that Steve had in his was this subject, oh, okay. The administrative code is a separate section.
Yes. And so, some of the stuff that's within the town administrator's responsibility is not in 4.6. If there's like appointment of department heads, it's in a separate standalone section, for example.
So rather than a catch-all, we want to say something about other duties as specified under the charter? Where's it? Oh, in the paragraph at the end. Okay, yep, all right. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding any of these duties?
Does anyone see that? I mean, in terms of the approach that I've taken to doing it this way, people think this is a good approach, a bad approach. I just thought it'd be helpful to spell it out. Like I said, I'm not trying to defend it.
I think the negative aspect of this is there's all of a sudden, let me work one out. Let me give you two examples and pick one of the two. There's a great push underway I'm presuming there's a great push underway right now for regionalization. So one of his responsibilities is to work with other towns and governments on regionalizing their development. Another one might be economic development. All of a sudden, economic development is the key issue. Neither of those are in this list. I can see somebody going through, not, I'm thinking of a picky person saying, man, where's economic development? What's he doing working on economic? That's not his job. That's the job of the economic development committee. He's not responsible for regional development. He's not responsible for working with the state legislators to enhance laws and regulations that will give Newmarket latitude. That's the negative side. The positive side is, and that list would go on and on and on. The positive side is giving some sense of the scope of responsibility, which I think is good. I could go, I guess I could go either way on whether it's a good idea or bad. It's not helpful, but it's my judgment. This is not, this looks like a job description,
Yeah.
but it isn't, or shouldn't be.
To me, I think, so there always is a danger when you list something up that people are going to assume that is the all-encompassing list. And then anything not on the list, either a counselor or a future administrator, you're like, not on the list. That's not what I'm told to do. Not that we would hire someone like that, but it opens up that possibility. I think maybe the language in that last paragraph was slightly looser. The shall perform duties as may be described by this charter or required by ordinance or resolution of the council, not inconsistent with this charter. Maybe there was a way to broaden that so that it wasn't, because every time the council wants them to do something, or her, the administrator to do something, it's not going to be an ordinance or resolution.
It may be a comment, and I don't know if it's appropriate, maybe a comment that says right in this is not intended to be a comprehensive list, as the council may charge, something like that.
Yeah, maybe it's just something that's like as charged by the council. And it's just, I don't think the council should have to pass a resolution every time on the administrator to do something.
You said you came from the economic development committee? I mean, do you think it's generally the impression of the economic development group that the town administrator should be involved in economic development?
Thanks, Barry, said we.
Well, there you go.
In fact, there are things that come up during the conversation you need.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's administration.
Well, I think that's
what we're
a
talking
great
about. It's
example
also
of that.
on this plate. People are going to watch these 2 meetings back to back, and they were done at different times, and I still have that one shit. We never change clothes. Crystal, I do like what you did. I think that laying it out, I think is solid, as long as it's just clearly noted that it's not comprehensive.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, this isn't job description. This is the town administrator's job description, to do all these things and to do what is required to do by the charter, by the council, excuse me.
To include, not be limited to.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the note I made, as to what then.
Yeah, and I think if you did that, and then you read the opening paragraph and the closing paragraph, you would assume that pretty much the council can tell that.
Steve talked about having things that were precise in the charter that prevented, not just limited, but prevented him from doing other, potentially prevented him from doing other things, like having a title in there, and there's no person title in that organization.
Yeah.
So we don't want to limit it, but to include, but not be limited to.
Yep.
Something in that regard.
And the last paragraph kind of says that, but we can work that into the first paragraph.
Yeah.
The question Phil asked is whether the other duties as may be prescribed should be specified by ordinance or resolution, or how are you going to do it? Because you need to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And you run into the problem of, you call them up and say, I want you to do this. And you really,
I would never do
you
that.
really shouldn't say
That's
that. Well, it's not, it isn't you, Phil, you understand what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
Any counselor.
Any counselor. So,
And then he gets pulled in 6 different directions, and he goes to the council and he says, look, you guys need to tell me what you want me to do.
yeah, it's a good point. So, I think he does a good job of like, and I don't think the counselors are doing this right now. But if a counselor asks for something, like it's outside of like, hey, you have this information. If it's something like major, like it's like almost a policy move, then he would push back and say, the council has to do that, the counselor cannot.
Yeah.
But-
It's easier said than done.
Right. But then we fall on, so it's actually a very interesting point, someone there, that what if he doesn't do something that the council sort of asked for in a general way at the council meeting, but there was never a vote to codify that this is what we want the administrator to do. That by adding that, it requires that you would have to have some sort of vote to direct the council, the administrator.
What's the matter with having a resolution that says the council directs the town administrator to pursue opportunities for regional cooperation in the following areas? What's the matter with doing that?
What are the reading requirements on resolutions? We'd have to do 2 readings. We'd have to do.
You gotta follow the provisions in the charter. You gotta have a public hearing.
Yeah, I mean,
What's the matter with that?
because every time do we want to have a public hearing to say Steve should be involved in economic development?
Twice.
Yeah, we would have to do, that would take them 2 months.
You might wanna
Based on
have,
business meetings,
You might want to have a public hearing and a resolution to sketch out what you want them to do in relation to the economic development.
How are his goals developed?
So
He has specific.
He has
goals.
specific goals.
So maybe some sort of language around his goal, something like that.
As,
And that's an excellent point, because in his goals this year, one
Yeah.
of his major goals this year is to produce a significant, I can't remember the exact language, but it revolves around cost saving.
yep,
He has to, at the end of the year, come up and say, I did this, which say, and that's a good example. It could be in here, but do the goals take care of that?
And does that happen by resolution? Like how do these goals?
Yeah,
how are they
so-
implemented?
we voted on the goals as we were writing this contract, so it was actually not public that we did it because we're talking about the details of this contract.
But you can have a motion, you can have a resolution trying to accomplish the goals that are specified in his review.
Yeah.
Without disclosing what those are.
I have no issue with the convocation resolution, but the last thing I want is anytime the council wants them to do something, to have to go through 2 business meetings so that we can have a hearing, which means it'll take, we decide in January we want something, we'll have it in March.
Well, then, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what I don't want is the bureaucracy process to make it so that we are like the opposite of nimble and swift acting.
But there's a trade-off though, because if you don't formalize it somehow, then how do you have accountability?
Well,
I agree.
is there a way of just putting language in there for a council vote? I mean, you vote to accept minutes, you.
Yeah, so
vote
vote
to
to
adjourn, so a vote.
So to build on that, there's this, in the first sentence, it says, and shall carry out the policies enacted by the council. That,
But how does the council enact policies? I thought John told us that the
Ordinance
only way,
resolutions.
by ordinances and resolutions.
you can't enact a policy without a resolution.
So I guess, I don't think it's the personnel policy, we're gonna vote on the personnel policy eventually. We'll get around to it, I swear.
But you're going to pass a resolution adopting the personnel policy.
Probably. Or, yeah, resolution.
But there's not enough in that to,
I mean, every time you
something is in there, but I mean, you're not gonna be able to run the town personnel policy. I mean,
but we'll vote, like, there will be a vote that is codified in some sort of resolution. It won't be like, it'll be a resolution saying we adopt personnel policy. Should be.
We just got to decide what's more important. Is being able to give the town administrator instructions like that, or being sure that you're sufficiently clear to maintain accountability. Then maybe it's up to the council to act with more dispatch.
Yeah.
Not picking on you or any particular
No,
member
no.
or iteration of the council.
Personally, the more I listen to this, the less I like discussing this thing. Because I can personally pick out 5 or 6 things that are really important.
Yeah, let's keep finances in general.
Yeah, I mean,
Just about finances?
Maintaining accounting control.
County control of the finances.
Where is it?
B.
Maintaining accounting control of the finances of the town.
Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry.
I don't think it's changed.
No, my, I have
That's in
B.
the current version of the charter.
Oh, you struck out the financial reports. That's old B.
It may still be in here. Keeping the council fully informed of the needs of the town and making such reports and recommendations as they may deem advisable.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather, I'd rather have, like, leave the monthly reports to the council.
Yeah, we can do that. You can certainly do that. We can certainly pop that back in there. Maybe all the subheadings under H are unnecessary.
RSA? This language?
This is basically spelled out of the RSA, yeah.
The list under H?
Yes. That doesn't mean they all have to be spelled out. I thought it would be for our educational purposes, at least to spell it out. You know, there's nothing in the current version of the charter that requires a town administrator to administer contracts that are let by the town. Now, who else is going to do it? Ultimately, who's accountable to the council to do it ultimately, if he's not doing it? It's helpful to kind of flip back and forth and look at what's in the current, in the charter currently. There's nothing in the charter currently saying that he has to maintain full and complete records of what he's doing.
I mean, I would rather, sorry, I'm talking a lot here, but I would rather the list is closer to the RSA than what we have right now, which is sort of just like a hodgepodge of,
So then we're randomness to it.
there's a little bit of randomness to it, there really is.
What if we include a provision about additional duties and how they will be assigned? And come around and just say, you know, the council may assign additional duties by majority vote or something like that. And you know that.
By resolution or ordinance.
All right, so well, that puts us back to the original.
But that's the original question, that's also what how the charter currently reads.
And if you're going to take
By
stuff
resolution or
out,
ordinance.
Right.
if you want to make this more general and take out the bug dust, the bug dust should probably still be in the job description that's in the administrative code or somewhere.
Well, it doesn't-
Doesn't the town administrator need to read the job description like every other, like a department head?
What's about this?
The bug dust, you know, the sprinkling of streets and highways, the laying of dust and the removal of snow. Does that have to be in the charter?
I see what you're saying. I mean, that's from the RSA, though, right?
It's in the RSA, yes.
By the way, we do have a current job description.
Okay.
There is, they have it.
Maybe if we knew what was in that, because I know when we went out to search, we spent a great deal of time on job description, not only talking about responsibilities, but also qualifications.
Yeah, I'm not against this. I'm not against including your bug test in. Never heard that.
Is there any issue between the contract, job description, contract that town administrator signed and negotiated what's here?
So I don't have the contract right in front of me, but as I recall it, there's nothing here that would be like a contract.
Which one would take precedent?
I can't, again, I don't have his contract memorized, but I'm sure there's reference to the charter is not his contract. I don't know if
You
anyone
have
else
to
is on
read
the
his,
council.
you have to read his contract again.
I'd have to read his contract, I just don't know.
The contract refers to the charter, obviously.
Yeah. So change the charter. I don't get any nowadays.
I mean, we can refer to an RSA wrongs specific.
Yeah, I mean, we could just,
Form duties according to RSA sections.
I think it's more,
listed in the RSA.
but as someone that was new to this, when you came on board, like, if I saw that, I'd be like, seriously, you're not gonna list it out, you're gonna make a contract to the RSA, but no.
Yeah. Decent impression. Hopefully.
The search big, that's a Yeah, I will pull back my lack of desire to see ordinance or resolution. It's in the current language, we should probably do it. It's one of those things we haven't done this time.
Okay, so it sounds like we want to keep that, and then we want to change something in the opening paragraph to include, include but not limited to.
Yeah.
Okay.
The town administrator's responsibility shall include, but not be limited to, the following. And that'll go from there. And then the last paragraph will stay as it is. The council can specify the ordinance or resolution of the things they want to do.
Working on John's suggestion, what if we did a little backwards and said,
Make the last paragraph the first paragraph?
no, starting off the preamble by saying, responsible for fulfilling responsibility under RSA, whatever it is, including,
But not limited to.
but not limited to. And then we got all bases.
Yeah.
So if we miss something that was in the RSA here, we got it.
Yep. John also suggested a couple of different introductory paragraphs, which I think are actually covered in different sections of the charter. So we'll just leave that and circle back to that. The other thing I added in here, and this is my own gloss, is as part of his responsibilities is applying for grants and accepting grant funds. Maybe that's too much detail again, but
He does it.
the administration does it generally. You know, the dam issue, the dam study is being funded by grant funding, for example. So in John's first point on page 9 of his draft, John sticking with 4.6 for a second, he talks about to organize, continue, or discontinue such departments. I think that's covered in 4.12. The township departments, divisions as may be established by the charter of the council, as the council may establish by ordinance. And then the appointment of department heads and town employees is covered, I think, in 4.8. Kevin, you hire and fire police officers, right? Who does that? The town administrator does it. And your recommendation? Is that unusual experience? That it's done that way for
No,
towns?
I don't think it's unusual. I think cities, most of the time, it's the city manager that does the actual blessing of
Right.
the officer or the candidate.
Is there anything else on 4.6? Is already clear. What I'm going to suggest I do is I work up some language. Maybe I'll just run it by John.
That would be fine. Does
Before I
anybody have a
circulate
problem with
it.
that? I don't have a
If
problem
you
with
don't
that.
mind, I'll just copy.
Great. 4.8 is the next major change. Go ahead, department heads. So this is pulling the name of the department heads out of the charter.
Right. And putting it in, if the council, town administrator, has the authority to establish or disestablish departments, it makes sense to not enshrine them in the charter. Make them honor of the administrative code.
Is there, I guess there's no risk really to having even some limited, say, following shall at least be included as a partner or something like that.
Yeah, I think this has been,
More flexibility.
this has been a real problem
Okay.
with the council, and You know, I think Steve did a very good job talking about the other day when combining things like fire and police and stuff. But you really want that latitude to.
And we understand also that the police chief is treated separately and distinctly by statute, and there are certain things that it doesn't really matter what we do.
Right.
You have a certain independence.
The police chief can only remove for cause.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing I can remember.
This is a specific RSA
Yeah,
on how to get rid of one.
I dealt with this issue 20 years ago, I worked in the court system. Now, John Radigan adds a comment that this is silent as to fixing the compensation of department heads. I guess I assume that would be a matter of the personnel policy. Would you, I mean,
Well, who sets, is this point, who sets the compensation?
I assume that the council adopts the personnel policy by resolution, and it has the compensation for each position in it.
That does not have it in that.
No, the town administrator currently manages the merit budget for department heads.
Like, there's not like we're not like on a GS scale or something where it's this position has this for this year and then step next.
That's being related, that scale.
Oh, it
It
is.
used to have a pay scale.
Okay, not on the base.
Also, with time of hire, the department head would interview 5 candidates, and part of the consideration would be compensation. And they would bring that forward to the council and say, this is the person we're recommending because of these qualifications, and compensation level is consistent with practices within our town. So I think that's my own opinion, it's best left alone.
I haven't looked, how does Durham do it, how do the other charter towns do it? And John, it's great that John says, tell them I'm fixing compensation. You successfully identified the problem. What's the solution? You can't trust attorneys, let me tell you, you just can't. That's great, John. Yeah, that's interesting. Doesn't say anything about compensation. Taking a quick look at the Durham charter, for example, I don't see anything in there about compensation for department heads.
You know, it just talks about the code.
Although the Durham charter also specifies police, public works, business management, and
ID or EG?
Section 6.3.
oh, 6.3.
Well, this is, Portsmouth, for example, it says the compensation of all officers and employees not fixed by this charter shall be fixed according to a classification system, which we don't have. We do not have a classification system.
Yeah, 6.3 in the Durham charter says compensation of appointed officials and department heads shall be established and modified by resolution of the council.
So basically, just the council says it.
I don't recall, I don't think there's anything in that charter about compensation of town employees.
I've seen that in the essence.
Yes.
It's a range.
A range,
of salary.
But then whenever the,
I don't know how many we have.
And there's also, in the town now, we have a merit system. So it's based on performance, which is new this year. So it's not a seniority system, it's a merit system.
So the compensation of town employees is currently set by the town administrator? Is that what I understand?
yes, the town administrator sets it, he informs the council, but he
Does
sets.
the council pull holy water over it? Or
We do not officially. We were just informed.
do we want to consider doing that? That's what they do in Durham.
Have the council set the pay.
The compensation shall be established and modified by express resolution of the council. That would probably be a matter. Especially, do you want to do that?
I have a very strong feeling about this. And that is that we've got a merit system. And for the council to sit down and determine merit of an employee, that they don't supervise, that they don't, to me, is absurd.
Criticizing something that should be.
It's, yeah, well, I don't like Joe.
That's the council just doesn't, I know some of the people that work in town, but I could not tell you who's the best worker within the DPW. Maybe should get the merit.
Well, that invites, I think, a more serious violation of the charter, and that somehow the councilors need to get involved in.
Yeah, pushes more.
Looking at what employees are doing and such.
And the town administrator, for example, may say, I'm concerned about the competitiveness of the salary of our police chief. So I want to, you know, I want to.
But shouldn't the council have oversight? You don't have to know what employee is getting what.
We do. We
You have a pay scale.
They have the merit budget.
You can have a pay scale for each position. See what I'm saying?
Putting in, so establishing a pay scale for a position. That the chart, that the.
I'm just asking the question because right now, I think what John is driving at would be helpful if he was a little more explicit, is to say, well, how are salaries set currently? How is that done? Is there oversight of that? And I don't know the answers to those questions.
So the only people that I think that according to the charter we would have oversights on is the public works director, the police chief, there's
There really isn't a merit system, there's a merit pool of money this year that there hasn't been in the past.
Right.
And nobody knows how it's gonna be divvied up. And what qualifies for what, so that, you know, it's totally how it happens, whatever happened this year. We haven't had to worry about it for 4 years, so it doesn't matter. And the employees that are union, the union contract negotiates what they're gonna get.
Doesn't the council kind of indirectly, or in thus the town meeting, indirectly have the authority over it by budget?
So you can flush the whole budget, but they can't do it, they can't kill a line item.
No, but the budget committee, and, I mean, there's a lot of other oversight that would look at it.
So the question, which I think is different than what's in 4A, but the question we're talking about now is should we have some sort of pay scale established?
That's a policy question for the council, really.
So is that even something we can be talking about?
This strikes me as one of those solutions looking for a problem.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So when I will go back to this section and say, we might want to be a little more explicit around what is subject to approval. Is it the pay that's subject to approval by the council? The administrator shall have the power to appoint all department heads subject to approval by the council. Should that include, does the council vote on just a person, or the pay, the contract, or what?
Well, again, I can only do past practice. Past practice, when we hired somebody like the town administrator.
Right.
We had a number of resumes, we looked at their qualifications, we looked at their pay levels. We looked at a whole, so I think that de facto.
Well, but I'm looking at a change from before, because before it said the town council has the power to appoint, and now we're moving it to the administrator. So by shifting this to the administrator, but we're saying subject to approval by the council, which elements are approved by the council? When the council would have the power to appoint everything by the council, right?
But department heads are appointed on the basis of, solely on the basis of qualifications, training, and experience. And I anticipate that those are the only issues the town council will have oversight of.
Not pay.
I think it's
You're
implicit.
going to lose councils on that.
Well, again, if councilors,
You're telling me the councilors, I'm sorry, you're telling me the councilors don't have oversight of what people are getting paid now? I don't understand.
Pay for the initial contract versus pay, so this is the appointment of department heads. So pay for the initial people coming in, right now, would be set. Say we hired a new public works director, or I don't want to say the police chief is the other. Say we hired a police chief. Rick's going to be watching TV, throwing his apple in it. So we hire them right now, according to this, the council will be responsible for everything of this department, and setting pay, and right? The way it's currently.
I don't know.
So if the town council is voted to appoint, I mean, who else would set that?
Again, my experience is that the town administrator in the past, when he brought in a finance director,
Yeah, there we go.
which is maybe a good example,
Yeah,
did not go to the council and say, I think we should pay him X or Y. I think what happened, which I think is entirely appropriate, is he comes in and I'm recommending Kevin for the job, I recommend we pay him $25,000 a year. Here's his experience. And at that point, if somebody thinks on the council that that's an issue, I think it should be discussed, but I think ultimately it has to. My own opinion has to.
Right. There'll be some councilors who disagree. I tend to agree.
But it's past practice.
Well, it'd be helpful if those councils would come in and articulate the reasons why,
I'm sure they will.
rather than just laying the weeds.
I'm sure they will. I'm just giving you like what, I'm not advocating that
I
position.
understand.
To attract the best people
Yeah.
and encourage the best people to come to Newmarket to work, the town administrator has to have some flexibility on salary.
Yeah.
And we go back to our discussion several meetings ago about the town council micromanaging the town
Right.
administrator.
Yeah.
And the example was buying the trucks.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
You can't, I don't think you can do that. You have to have the town administrator and give him the responsibility for running the town. And that includes the salaries. If he's gonna get the best people, he has to have that flexibility to offer some more money or whatever that, the town council shouldn't micromanage this.
Yeah, you gotta have flexibility.
But I think it undermines the town administrator.
Exactly.
It totally does.
Because who do the department heads report to? Do they report to the town administrator or do they report to the council?
Yeah. You're come reporting to the town council, that's not right.
Right.
Phil,
But the
you-
town council sets my salary.
Phil, you remember, and I'm not breaking anything because it's
Yeah.
not a private, but we had this discussion on the salary for the town administrator.
Mhm.
And it was 2.5 hours of,
So, yeah.
let's tell you what, let's give him an increase in 3 months if he does a good job. Or let's, I mean, it was
all over.
terrible.
Well,
Yeah, it would encourage micromanagement. I don't disagree. I'm just saying that there's going to be times out there that.
I think that it's interesting that we're talking about micromanagement because to the extent that we isolate, and people have even come to our meetings and told us that this is not what we're supposed to look at. But when we look at affordability and nimbleness of the government, when people are distracted by doing things that we question whether the town charter should be telling them to do it, you interfere with nimbleness and affordability when people are not focused on these other issues that need to be dealt with. Right? This is a specific example where the charter can help that by saying, look, this is not something you need to worry yourself about. You need to worry about these.
Yes.
The long-term fiscal health of the community, what we're doing, those kind of
And
things.
it's up to the council and to the charter commission to articulate that there's a cost associated with paying a little bit more for a highly qualified person. And there's a cost associated with hiring the cheapest airline pilot you can have to fly your airplane.
Right. And spending
Do you
3.5
want
hours.
to
trying to
get
do
on
it.
that plane or not?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that as a balance, if you're looking for a balance in this whole thing, a town administrator got to present a damn good case as to why they're doing what they're doing with the council. And if there's a fault in the case, they're not going to do it more than twice. So I think the leverage is built in.
We were talking about, again, many meetings ago, about streamlining and making it in maybe just one little piece. This is one piece to help to streamline that process so that people can get things done quicker.
So we've kind of come full circle, and it seems like we want it the way it is, except for there's still an open question of what does it mean subject to approval by the council?
Yeah.
And then our answer to John is yes.
Yes, so I go streamline.
I'm taking my
You decided on their compensation. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thanks for that, John.
Yes.
He's added value.
Yeah, you got it.
That's the kind of worry I want.
So do you have any suggestions for language that might help?
I just struck a line from John's comment.
Yes.
Well, what does clarify on subject to approval by the council?
Yeah, that part.
I guess the way it is right now, I guess it's the approvals of the plan.
Yeah, I take it that way as well. I don't see it as some kind of global approval of every component of the person's job, including salary.
I guess the basic question is, if it's way over what his budget, then you ask, what are you gonna do with your budget? Come back in your budget, if you budget 100,000, or you're paying 150,000, or that's going to be oversight. I would say is, what do you plan to do to stay in the budget? Basically, what you're going to do now.
Exactly, Leo's exactly right. The town administrator has a budget.
Yeah.
He has to manage people and salaries within the budget.
And if he goes away over budget, it's...
The person may be so good that they can save twice that.
Okay?
All right. Great job. At least annually thereafter in section 4.9.
Yeah, 4.9, John just added, reviews of department heads at least annually. So if the town administrator feels necessary, to review on a semi-annual basis or quarterly basis, or whatever.
Okay, now we're at
4.10.
4.10. And John has no comments, and our changes are more about the disciplinary action.
Right, all we did was take I think this comes from Steve, is take all this detail about what's done and what time frames things are done, and just put all that in the personnel plan.
I think that's perfect.
So that if changes need to be made, the council can amend the personnel plan. And then have to come back to the charter to make changes to, the stuff probably shouldn't have been in the charter in the first place. Al's nodding his head, so I know.
Okay, anybody have any 4.11? Non-interference with town administrator. I like the new clause better, a lot.
There was a lot of talk about this issue, and this just kind of a little more descriptive, a little more fleshed out. And it adds the accountability piece that there's been a lot of discussion about.
So are you comfortable adding John's forfeiture required by RSA 49D4?
Yeah, because you'll see that I put a note in the comment in the margin, asking him if that was,
Yeah.
and he said, yeah, that's okay under state law, under 4994. So I'll just say forfeiture of office pursuant to RSA 49-D:4. Or maybe just say forfeiture of office as specified in state law in case they change the statute.
All right, and then 4.12, Departments and Administrative Code. This is where we have a discussion about the code. You have a mistake?
Let's just take one.
Okay.
And fire my take this.
Do we need to say anything about here, or is that just understood? That this is where the department heads will be defined? We define departments, but
I'm not sure what you're saying.
I'm not really sure what I'm saying. Well, we removed the list of department heads from elsewhere in the charter. This is obviously where they're going to appear, right? In the administrative code. Will there be department heads?
There will be departments and department heads with a job description for each department head specified in the administrative code. That goes back to 4.8. The administrative code shall include a job description for each department head. But there's no,
Oh, okay, and then for the purpose of Article 4, the term department head shall be defined in the administrative code. And so we just,
so departments will be established, consolidated, eliminated, created under the administrative code.
okay, I think 4.8 covers it. Never mind.
Clarify something here. I'm understanding. Under 412, it says, it is the duty of the administrator to draft and submit to council within 9 months. That's what Steve is doing, is that right?
Yeah. This is Steve.
Would the
Next.
town administrator 3 years from now have to do that again?
Maybe. It could be the same thing. That's a good question.
I think what he had said about that was that whatever we had for administrative code was really jumbled.
Yeah.
Right, exactly right. And so he's doing.
So he's cleaning that up, so maybe, you know, I guess another administrative officer can do that, but maybe it'll be better, they won't have to do that, or maybe just add to it. Looks like we'll finally have it better, you know, outlined than we've ever had it when it gets it done.
And this looks like it was written exactly for our situation with Steve.
Yeah.
But I'm taking beyond Steve, he goes to his greater reward to another bigger town, whatever. Are we going to expect the next town administrator to do that same thing within 9 months?
It's an interesting question.
I suppose as a practical matter, I would expect the succeeding administrator to propose any changes they want to make to the existing code, rather than redo the whole
I
thing.
see what you mean, if it's in there, they have to do it again.
Yeah, so each person would have to come in and look at this over and say, all right, I think we need some
Because
changes
it's in
here.
the charter.
Yeah.
And you get this unique opportunity when someone new comes into an organization.
Use that experience.
They haven't adopted all the basic underlying assumptions and cultural norms that have existed forever, right? So they actually having them do this, it'll be an
I
opportunity.
don't have a problem with it, I
Yeah.
just want to know if that's the intention of what we're trying to say.
You know, it's
And
not,
Steve is doing this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
rightfully he should, because he inherited a mess, but the next person after Steve is what I'm saying, and the next person after that.
no, it's a good question, and it's not clear. I think this is language that Steve proposed, and I'm not sure exactly what he had. That's a good question to
Well,
ask.
that may be exactly what he had in mind, that each new administrator within 9 months should review the code and come forward with changes.
And if the new administrators, at that point in history, had some other idea or better, something to be added,
That's exactly
or he might
right.
just come up and say, no, this is fine the way it is, whatever, but he's got to do it in 9 months.
And this is a great question if you're on a town administrator search committee saying, with a candidate saying, have you read our code, what changes would you make? Give me 3 changes you would make to our administrative code today. Good question to ask somebody.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it.
I think this may be motivated in part by the fact that it hasn't been done in the past, and it's been perceived as one of the most critical aspects of becoming captain of the ship. And I personally think it's a great idea.
Well, it would require the administrator after Steve to put his fingers and his fingerprints on it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly right.
Person could just say it's perfect.
Yep.
Yep.
So should we change language to say it shall be the duty of each appointed administrator upon an appointment to draft and submit to council within 9 months after submittal notice. Any change or
That might send it to the town council.
Necessary?
You wanted to change it when you have to go to administrative goal, instead of going through administrative goal, right?
yeah, you would have to propose it to the council for their adoption.
We have to be done by resolution or ordinance.
So,
Yes.
Oh, well.
I
don't see any problem.
I think it's good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Okay.
We've gone around and around on this, and candidly, still not sure I got it. We everybody wants it.
I like the way
The way it is now and the way it is in the change.
I'm just not with
The stuff that's in here is John Radigan's comments.
415?
Yeah. These aren't my, because I never thought that we got to a clear consensus on this, so I didn't change anything. So what you see is in John's draft, if you're looking at.
Where the treasurer is appointed?
Yes. John's proposed some changes to the first couple of sentences on 4.15A. I have no opinion on it. We have gone around and around on this a bit.
We went right around. The town clerk tax collector, we decided that we weren't changing that.
No.
No, I don't think we decided. I remember we talked about.
We talked about it. And
One appointed and one elected, and that's.
the thing that we addressed was, for some reason, I had received information that our previous town clerk tax collector supported the separation, and that is not the case.
Okay.
That's not the case.
That is not the case. That is not the case.
Wow. That's not how I understood it.
Yep. And I spoke with her, and that is not the case.
I endorse what everybody did.
I just telling you that. That was the separation issue. This is something different. This is whether the
Yeah.
treasurer is elected.
Okay, so we're leaving that one.
Yes, we will address that.
My opinion is that it should be appointed. The reason I feel that way is if we have an unqualified person put their name in, the only person puts their name in for treasurer, there's no competitor, then there's no alternative but to choose an unqualified person. I'd rather put the responsibility of the administrator to find a qualified person than I would to simply allow somebody who's not qualified to be put into office because there's no alternative. And I think given participation in our government, that would be very possible to have happened.
Anybody else have any input on this?
I can see opening goes back and work in the office, the administration in the office out there, having a town clerk in one section, the tax collector in another section.
We're talking about treasurer. This is treasurer, we're not
Oh,
talking.
talking about treasurer.
Yeah,
We've given up on the other one.
Back to the town clerk.
Well, I brought it up and because we skipped over it, because we talked about it. And so I guess we laid that to rest, so that was the treasurer comment.
My issue is that this becomes an individual that is beholden to the administrator and the council as opposed to the voters. When it's appointed as opposed to.
What are the natures of the treasurer's duties that would benefit from that? Does the treasurer have the authority to not sign a check?
Say that word.
What is the treasurer's duties that you would want them accountable to the voters?
The town treasurer shall be responsible for the collection, accounting, deposit, and periodic reporting of all town revenues and expenditures in a secure and business-like manner in accordance with generally accepted accounting practices, which everybody knows is kind of our top secret handshake, accountants only stuff.
So those are not, those don't strike me as very discretionary responsibilities. And it always seems to me that you want people who are accountable to voters when they're discretionary or require a certain amount of independence. This strikes me as more administrative. And how many voters are going to come in and say, I just wanted to know if the treasurer is collecting and accounting and depositing and periodically reporting on revenues and expenditures in a secure business like manner before I vote. I mean, I've done that at candidates night several, for a decade now. Never seen anybody who's running for town treasurer come to the candidates night.
Here, I'll give you a scary thought. Allison runs for town treasurer.
Quick, I gotta make an appointment.
But I'm not getting aside. And I'm the only one that runs. And I'm going to be responsible for how we invest our monies and how
I totally get it. I get where you're coming from.
it's really trouble.
And I can see where it would go.
Administrator, find a good person.
That's what I thought.
We put it in there separate for a reason.
What is that? What is that reason?
You know?
Is there a concern that there would be collusion and somehow criminal activity or something?
That risk exists either way.
Yes.
What this gives you is a minimum level of assurance that you have somebody who's qualified. Is this a position that's better served by somebody with education, training, experience, qualification to account for the finances of the town?
Yeah, I
Millions of
think
dollars.
one of the things that we've noted is that there's been a lack of volunteerism. You know, the number of people running for positions is decreasing. You get a car or anything? I mean, what's the
Yeah, but
what's the motivation for somebody running for treasurer?
So, but then what's the role of the finance director? I mean,
I think the treasurer is required by statute. Right. It's a position that's required by statute.
So, how much is the treasurer? I mean, the treasurer's never talked to the council. The treasurer's never, finance director talks to us all the time.
I don't think the treasurer has to talk to you.
we get the treasury report. annually.
Yeah.
That's, this is what I invested, this is what
Do we compensate the treasurer?
no.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
think
There's got to be some about it.
I think. the-
Oh, do
It's not, it's,
No, I don't know.
so. I didn't,
I don't know.
Yeah, treasurer is.
it's like a lot of work.
Oh, no, it's not.
I'm sorry.
500, 1,200 or something like that.
the finance director and the administrator, sign manifests, things like that, but they don't actually cut the checks. This is a second set of eyes that's got to look at the books. And that person should be qualified to do that. More qualified than they were the only person on the ballot if they got 10 votes. We could end up with a treasurer in that situation. I think we've got the administrator making an appointment with approval of the council. At least there's that many people looking at the person's qualifications and see what's wrong.
And there's a public hearing on the appointment of the person, and they're vetted.
Either qualified or not.
I like to look at this and say, if I find myself as the chair of the commission out there trying to explain to people, I feel I can explain why we made this change without, and address people's concerns that we're trying to remove elected officials or something like that.
We think the people are better served this way.
Yes.
I'm just going to try to find out what their compensation is.
We can do that. We can leave this the way it is, and that would be one of the questions we have.
I wonder who does the compensation for the treasurer? If it's an
Right,
elected-
right.
Huh?
It's got to be the budget, right?
Yeah, I think whatever.
But I mean, it's elected, so the council will. I don't know.
I thought it was nominal.
It's not.
Something maybe 500 or 1,200 or something like that. It's been a long time. We had the same treasurer for 20 years, 30 years or something.
And that, we should probably make it very clear, this is no comment on our existing treasurer.
Yeah.
This is a long-range document that requires us to look at.
Treasurer said-
You
You
did.
can't say a comment on our treasurer, because I don't know who that is. I don't know who the treasurer
Which is,
Do you know who it is, Phil?
no, I'm trying to look it up, and it's not.
What's her name?
That's.
What's her name?
Yeah.
You've only been here for 20, 30 years, you know.
So let me return to the solution searching for a problem. If we can't even tell you who the treasurer is this really this big of a deal?
To replace them, I think it is.
Yeah, it is.
So the issue is that we got something.
Person has control over how your bank accounts. Trust funds. Your checks.
Every dollar that comes into the town, it's gotta be accounted for in the treasury.
Yeah, well, no, I guess it's also been an issue for the town at this point with it being elected. So we're trying to change to a point to fix a potential problem of road, not a problem right now.
This isn't solving a problem.
Next
This isn't intended to solve a problem, this is intended to rationalize perhaps a little bit. If there was a problem, we'd be having a different conversation.
So, I'm going to inquire as to the compensation of the town treasurer for our next meeting, and we're going to leave the language the way it is. That's what I'm taking from where we are now. We're leaving the language in the red line.
The new change.
Yeah, we're going to leave that language the way it is.
My only problem with this room is that there's a lot of air,
Yeah.
so it's sometimes a little difficult. So I'm wondering if there's a wall hanging or something. That's all, that's what I'm looking at.
Would you like to include a new section on that?
No.
Okay. How about a mural? No, that makes sense. All right, we did it. We went through 4. Does anybody need anything else added to section 4?
How about the change from the word consent to approval?
Oh,
John?
yeah, John suggested that.
John suggested.
In 415, actually.
I think it's approval everywhere else.
The word consent and then change should be approval.
Subject to the approval of the council.
Yeah, I agree, approval makes more sense.
Okay. With that change, anything else in section 4? All right. Since we've gone over all the other sections, and Leo was good enough to provide us with some changes, should we go through Leo's changes first?
Yeah.
Okay. Section,
I ended up with the correct language.
what's that?
I ended up utilizing the correct language for the capital improvement.
Okay. I'm looking at 11, yeah. What was the other one?
There's 11.1 D and E, and then there's 5.7 is the correct capital improvement plan. Taking out the first sentence, and that's popped over into 11.1. Is that right, Leo? Did you follow up? Did I do this the way you want it done?
Louis, we're going to talk about 5.7 now, we're going to 11. 5.7, I was looking at capital improvement programs for prayer and submitted to the council capital improvement program. The statute says 6748, planning board, capital improvement committee, has prepared a capital improvement program under RSA 6747, and they shall submit its recommendation for the current year to mayor or selectmen and the budget committee. So I was wondering what we got to put budget committee on 5.7, the way the statute reads. Yeah, we've always done that. I can see how people gave me a copy of the CIP to the town council and to the budget committee. I'm wondering if 5.7, did I say that or should I say that? I don't know.
What was the statutory reference again? Leo?
What's that?
What was the statute?
674-8, section 674. Whenever the planning board where the council approved program is shall submit its recommendation for the current year to the mayor or selectmen and the budget committee for consideration as part of the annual budget. That's a statute, probably got to report in there. It has been done for the last several years. The question should be in the, I guess the other part we talked about is on section 2 there, whether we should be putting a statement there including the school on 572. It says all the items, you know, sewer, water, roads, bicycles, bicycle paths, and everything. It doesn't include schools in it.
But the schools are included in the statute.
Yeah.
And I see something, 11, they've added at least annually to town council, so we go to school. It's a new red bucket. That's at 11.
Yeah, but this is the CIP.
Yeah, that's.
That's not CIP, that's not CIP.
No, this, I don't know if that's what he was talking about. It is at 11.
No, it's about that, what we have here is in the charter, we don't mention the school as being part of the capital improvements program. But when you look in the statute, it does. It actually is one of the few statutes that mandates that the school must respond to inquiries from the CIP committee.
So should it be in 5.7?
I think it should be. I think it's reasonable. It's part of the statute.
Can I ask
the
a
whole-
question about the process?
Of the CIP process?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things it says is capital improvement plan shall be based on a period of not less than 6 years, it shall include reference to what be influenced by or appropriate the town master plan. I haven't read the town master plan, so, so is there a piece of the master plan for the school?
Yes.
Is the school incorporated in the master plan?
Yes. And one of the issues with that is we have impact fees. In order to have impact fees, you have to have a CIP. And in order to have an impact fee on the school, you have to have information about the CIP and about the schools.
Yes.
And so if the schools are not, and I'm not saying that our school isn't doing this or that any school wouldn't, but the CIP committee needs the authority to go out and get that information so that they can write a CIP about it, so that the planning board can then talk about having an impact fee. Because if you take the foundation away, the house collapses.
They've collected a lot of impact fees.
Yes, they have.
Back several years, I mean, millions.
Right.
What is it, 2,500 bucks a unit now?
Yep.
So if each unit, for instance, if there's 50 units up there, that's over 100,000, 100,000.
For that reason alone, I think that it's appropriate for our CIP committee to have the school in,
Yeah.
Are we making any changes to 5.7 on account of what we just discussed?
I think we want to add schools in there somehow.
Yeah, I think when it says capital, number 2 there, the list of capital improvements, then they start itemizing, including but not limited to equipment, sewer, water mains, facilities, roads, sidewalks, bicycle paths, public open spaces, recreation facilities, new police, fire stations, new public facilities. Actually, somebody should.
So I'll just add school facilities to that list.
Yeah, right, and there's some, including school facilities or programs, equipment.
Okay.
Right? So, we're going to go to 11.1 and we're going to talk about D and E, which are the membership provisions.
Before we jump down there,
Yep,
a couple of things from John Madigan that I think are minor.
on the CIP stuff.
No,
Oh,
the personnel, 6.2, the personnel plan. There was this thing we talked about last time, that the council shall consider and act on amendments within 90 days after submission. John added the language, feeling which they are deemed to have been rejected. Which I think is the appropriate way to approach it. Steve's approach is if the council doesn't act on it, it gets adopted. response to that was
Yeah.
no. Of course, the council can act on something by putting it on, by tabling it indefinitely. And then it's effectively killed. But
Outlines failing in which they are deemed have been rejected.
that's the default.
Yeah.
The next one is in 7.1B.
Can we go back to finance?
Yes, absolutely.
I wasn't, and I should have included in the comments, but I actually didn't know where to bring up the subject, but I think this may be it. And I talked about it a little bit before. But I think one of the issues that's lacking in Newmarket, as it is, I think, in most communities, is the responsibility of the finance department or the town administrator or the council or all to look forward to the financial welfare of our community. And I mean that in as much as putting a forecast together and holding somebody accountable for more than just 1 year. Let me give you an example of that is we continually push off roads and highways. And we just push it aside and get to our budget, but it still looms out there. That expense is coming. And I don't know how it applies to municipalities. I do know how it applies to businesses. And that is that the shareholders and the stockholders want to understand how the decisions you're making today affect the future. And we have none of that in our town government. And I think it's a critical element as we look forward to things like, we've talked about water, we've talked about wastewater, we haven't talked about dam, what the implication of that could be. We kind of just push that off, but that's millions or billions of dollars. And I think somehow we owe it to the community to, as executives, and I'm not sure again whether it applies to the finance department or the town administrator or the council, but to say based on things that we know are coming down the road, here are the potential impacts to our future beyond 1 year. I don't know where it goes. I don't know if you folks agree it belongs there. It's just something I've got in my stomach from participating in this government for a number of years, and being very frustrated by the fact that we don't move forward.
Yeah, that should be one of the functions of the budget committee. Should be looking ahead to, sustainable tax increases or what is coming down the road and whether we can afford this, if we got this coming down the road. I think that's one of the long-term ranges of the CIPs. In budget committee looks at the CIP, they can see what is coming down the road for major expenditures and the other expenditures. I think that should be one of the functions of the budget committee is we have so many people on it, but they can get somewhat of a consensus as to where are we heading for, how much are we going to be 4 or 5 years down the road when we afford this.
Isn't the budget committee constrained by RSA as to what their functions are? True or false?
I think it's a council function
Right.
to require of the administration to do the information gathering and doing the long range planning.
May I suggest that we talk about the concept first and then talk about who does it? Or we kind of all agree, I think it's an intriguing idea. I've looked at the other, I've not found anything similar in another town, but I think I like it. And it would be like 513, 514 or something, that we would have this budget, like financial forecasting, or pull something from a company that does it.
And again, I think on the economic development, what problem are we trying to solve with economic development? Well, unless you know what the forecast, how do you know what the economic development objectives should be? I mean, it's all this stuff that we worry about in our own businesses.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'll tell you my perception of municipal economic development. Every municipality thinks that non-residential development is the secret to economic development. So they're all running around there, you know, everybody's running around fighting for the same stuff without doing an analysis and saying, what do we really need? And, you know, I think it's possible. I mean, that assumption may be correct, but that's how they operate. Nobody has this 10-year financial plan that they say, hey, here's the kind of development we need and why. I've never seen a model like that.
Long-term planning is really critical. To me, it's a council responsibility.
Do you have any access to any kind of language that we could manipulate for this?
I'm glad to work on it.
Does everybody support that? Does anybody have a problem with it?
I think it's.
I don't know how you do it.
Al's gonna figure it out.
I don't know how you do it, unless you got a crystal ball.
Well, you got at least try.
I can tell you that the entire state of Ohio, it's written into the state constitution that all municipalities have to provide a 5-year forecast. The entire state does it.
How's that work?
I can't tell you, but it seems so obvious to me that without looking ahead, you can't plan the future. I mean, a business could now maybe, you know.
Whose job is it?
Our
Whose job is it?
Is what?
Looking ahead.
Well, that's what we're trying to decide.
That's part two.
Whose job? Who are we gonna appoint? We're back to the discussion about accountability. Whose job is that?
I would say.
Whose job is it to get us water? Whose job is it to get us a new school? Whose job is it to fix the sewer plant?
Right.
And we take this to the people, and we have meetings, and how are you going to define whose job it is to fix every problem in town? I think the townspeople have a right to elect whoever they want, and either those people are going to be successful in achieving the goals of the town, or they're not. And if they don't, they should be voted out of office, put somebody else out in.
But I don't think it's a question of solving the problems. I think what Al is saying is defining the problems. What are we looking at in 10 years? Not, you gotta answer that question first before you figure out how to solve it. I think the long range problems of this town are very well defined and well known. Personally, I don't think, when I was in the council, we were talking about the sewer. You know, that's 13 years ago, 10 years ago. Just a question of, you know, so I think they're defined, but they're not formally defined.
You don't know what's coming down the road.
Well, I think a great insurance.
That's, I mean, well, schools, for instance, or something like that.
The big issue
What you do know.
and you just keep, the can keeps getting kicked down the road, so we know it's going to be in 5 years and 10 years, it's going to be the same problem, probably.
I think a perfect example
And
is.
more expensive.
I think the school did a great job on their presentation, showing what the cost of education was going to be in the year 2018. And everybody goes, well, not everybody, but many people went, whoa. Well, that's not guesswork, it's forecasting. And I'd like to see the same thing on the top. I think that the school did a great job. And it shows.
You're not going to know everything, but you know what the useful life of a road is. 15 years, 20 years, I don't know what it is, but that's what it is.
We do that right now in the CIP, as far as equipment goes.
The CIP, exactly.
I've already sat down and done my CIP. I can tell you what the lifespan is going to be on the cars.
Exactly.
I can tell you how many years I'm going to get out of it, and then every year we push it out.
You can do the same
So the
thing.
plan that we had last year has been pushed out. It'll be pushed out again. It's been pushed out every year since I'm the chief. I need 2 cars this year. I'm going to go to the council and ask for 1 because I'm lucky if I get 1.
Right.
So whose responsibility is it when the ship starts to sink and that road isn't paved? Is it Rick Malasky's responsibility the road isn't paved? If we keep kicking the can down the road?
It's the council's responsibility, and it's the voters' responsibility.
Right. So
That's what the responsibility is.
So what do we need that defined in the charter?
So what
Well,
I
the only
think
words then.
what Al's talking about is a 5-year economic outlook, that it said just a 5-year lookout of what is the cost of running this town to be 5 years from now.
If we don't do anything. But we don't know what we're gonna do year to year because we're holding on. Everybody's holding on and everybody's focused on tax rate only. Me too. I get a tax bill.
Yep.
Tax rate only. What do we do this year with the budget so the tax rate doesn't go up?
See, but that's what the 5-year plan, the 5-year projection should prevent. Because then you look at, okay, well, if we're gonna kick the can down a couple of years, what's that impact gonna be in 2018? And then you look at it and say, whoa, maybe kicking the can down the road isn't saving us money, even though it looks like it is in year 1, because in year 5, it's purpose.
Well, it already did save us money. From 15 years ago.
Well, I know, but nowhere has it been codified that it even attempted to do this routinely. And I like the idea of being like, look, you at least have to be looking 55 years down the road.
If you had a capital improvement plan 15 or 20 years ago, you'd have set aside money for this stuff. That would have increased the taxes at the time. And then when you have to build something or pave something like that, it comes out of the money that you've set aside. But that, no, it wasn't, you don't do that, don't set enough aside.
On a much smaller scale, I'm sorry, on a much smaller scale, think about the road study that was done.
About the
The
roads.
road study that was
Yeah.
done. So start it in year 1 and spend X dollars, and it will cost you, you know, whatever the numbers were, $10,000. Don't do year 1, and it's going to cost you $50,000. And so there it was in black and white, and that didn't get implemented. So what difference does it make if it's a 5-year forecast for the whole town? If year 1 gets blown out, then by year 5, we're way out of
Way
track.
off.
That's the point.
So-
Kevin.
And I was only jokingly talking
don't
about
follow
the crystal
the plan.
ball, but you can make that plan 5 years out. And at the end of 5 years, when you haven't come anywhere near that, and then of course, you're gonna hold that guy responsible for the crystal ball thing back 5 years ago, and all these other things come into play. Now,
The difference it makes is that a counselor can't run for re-election and say, well, I didn't know. I had no idea. This is news to me. It puts them in front of play. It's like, look,
I think
you
you're
can make
right.
this decision, but you have to understand that the political ramifications here are going to be that when it comes around that this is actually hurting us, not helping us. You think we're saving us money, we're actually getting them
But
spending
he
more.
probably could still run because he say, I didn't know X was gonna happen. I didn't know Y was gonna happen in the 4th year. You know, this was all based on something at the time.
I just can't believe
Try it,
that we're
right?
arguing
Try it.
about 5-year projections.
Yeah, why is this a problem?
No, it
should be 10.
Yeah, I know, 5 may be too short.
You better match on sand.
And I wonder if that should be something that is a new chapter in the master plan.
And again, I think the school did, take a look at what the school did. Take a look at the presentation that Jim did. There is not a single issue, the tuitioning is questionable, but the build out of the high school, the renovations to the junior high school, all in the master plan. And it shows, you don't agree?
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh. And what it simply does is it says, if we were to do it, this would be the impact on the tax rate.
And he did a wonderful job, based on what he had to do at the present time, based on what wasn't done in 2006, 7, or 8.
Agreed.
Okay?
Agreed, yeah.
And he did do a good job.
And
Nobody's going to say it's a rewarding task to do a 10-year projection and have it ignored. You're not going to get rewarded for that. But I think it's important information for the town voters.
It's important
Town
information.
council.
It's important information to shine a spotlight on the cost of doing nothing. But I agree with Kevin, I'm not sure it needs to be in the charter. This should be something the council should do.
You will end up with individuals on the council who are more concerned about today. Because economic decisions are long-term,
That's gonna
political
happen
decisions are
anyway.
short.
That's gonna happen anyway, whether you have it or not.
But I think we at least
You do, you put it in the charter, you do it, and it gets, and you ignore it. As you say, there has to be a political price paid for that, because you never avoid these costs. You only defer them, only push them down the road.
But mostly, the deferred costs will impact whatever jumps out and we sit in my seat at that point in time. You know what I mean? Like,
I
that
understand.
it will be some other council down the road that is left to
This
deal
is
with.
exactly what we criticize Congress for doing.
It's exactly what it
It's
is.
exactly what we're, but the difference is, we at least have some ability to control it because we're on a much smaller scale and we're much more accountable, I think, or we should be. But you can't control how the voters act on the information you give them. The council's responsibility, in my view, is to shine a spotlight on it and to keep bird dogging it and keep talking about it until it penetrates.
So are you for or against that decision?
I'm all in favor of having the forecasting. I'm not sure it needs to be in the charter, but let's see some language and see what it looks like.
Volunteer. I guess we'll see.
All those in favor of Al working very hard.
I'm for it, and if you need help, I'll.
We're getting a little far afield.
Yes.
I don't think that's right. Why are we far afield? This is the provision that we're adding to the charter.
Could be.
It's not the worst idea I've heard.
Well, I'll be there.
This is a touchy subject because I was there in 2006, 2007, 2008.
It's touchy.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
It's touchy because council is typically looking here and there and say, look how I'm going to keep the taxes down. And that's
Correctly.
Half-life of political
It's a
decisions.
half-life of political.
Changing, moving a little bit sideways.
Yeah.
Some of you saw I started implying the composite convention in past town council.
Yes.
I have one suggestion was to make it a 2-year term, and one suggestion was to make it a 5-year term. For the same reasons.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's fascinating stuff. I've got some more, but I'm not going to give it to you every day. I'm going to collect 2 or 3 of them and then send it out. Because it gets too much. That's good info.
10 years. It's like going to jail.
Yeah, it's a 5 to 10 years.
5 to 10.
I'm sure my son's alive.
2.5 to 5.
All right, let's go, are we gonna get back into the sections?
Yes. The next thing is 7.1 B. John, you remember that I proposed no full-time employee? John pointed out that that's exactly what RSA 6697 says, which I didn't know beforehand. I've got it here. The title of the statute is Incompatibility of Offices. And it says no full-time town employee shall at the same time hold the office of selectman. So this is very consistent with the existing state law. 6697.
Next section I see changes on is,
8.2, John just confirmed, 8.2, 8.3, John just confirmed that what we have is consistent with state law.
Maybe that could help us.
yep,
The full-time employee section put in the per hour say 660.
Yes.
Is that going to solve the problem of the conflict of interest thing that we had before?
Did Dan Dickinson? Yes.
yes.
That's what.
I think that would mean anybody who's a part-time employee of the town can serve on the town council if the voters are up. So a volunteer firefighter, EMT. What we had before was more restrictive in the statute. So now this is exactly consistent with the statute.
All right, so now we're at 11.1. Right?
So this is basically the stuff that I got from Leo, so Leo should be explaining the capital improvement stuff in 11.1.
Yeah, basically, what I've written up is really not what is written in ordinances or whatever, but what has been happening in the last several years is basically, the town council has been appointing a member, the budget committee has been appointing a member and an alternate, the planning board has been appointing a member and an alternate. And I see this year, for the very first year, the town council, when approving members, I don't basically see why the town council should be approving who the budget committee wants to have on the budget committee. Not the CIP committee or the planning board. I mean, it's any more, I think the council should be appointing members to the budget committee. I think this is in the last sentence, Steve's concerned about, you know, naming people on ex officio that are no longer available. I just put CIP committee should appoint all ex officio members if feels are necessary, subject to town council approval. That way there, it takes away, and I'm sure you can take them on the town planner, as they always have. And in the last few years, the town administrator, when I was 3-4 years ago, he put himself on the ex officio member, and I guess town administrator has been ex officio for the last 3 years, which they never were before. Al Dixon never wanted to be on it. So I guess it's CIP committee should basically say we think we'd like to have so-and-so and so-and-so. So-and-so help us with this. And town council's approval and that'd be it.
Given our earlier discussions about the school, isn't that a big part of missing here now?
School board member or something?
Well, maybe we, yeah.
Well, I guess that's, somebody's gonna have to talk to the school about saying, hey, you know, you guys have better put together CIP if you wanna keep having impact fees.
I don't know if that's big enough to have a business administrator on the CIP committee. I guess that's
Who can bring that up to them? I think Clay should.
Well, I think the chair of the CIP committee.
Huh?
The chair of the CIP committee should go to the school board and say, have you read the charter recently? By the way.
Well, the CIP is meeting tomorrow, we'll like to chair that. We'll let you know.
This is for your own good.
I don't know, they don't even have a chair yet, do they? They appoint us
No, tomorrow.
tomorrow.
There you go.
And then should they, and
They're gonna resign, right?
then should the CIP committee invite a school board member or a school rep?
I mean, so like, we're meeting tomorrow and it's like looking at a whole bunch of
Town
stuff.
council.
So, the whole CIP. Nothing else that isn't okay. I think this whole process is too crammed. I think that we can do a much more deliberate, long-term CIP. Like, it doesn't have to be all year on the budget committees right now, but I think we can probably not wait until we have to look at it before we vote.
Really, it's a question of the chair of the CIP committee setting up a meeting with the superintendent and talking to him
Yeah.
before anything else happens.
Yeah. It shouldn't be required.
They should view this as a good thing.
Yeah, it certainly should be seen as a good thing.
Yeah.
I do think though that we should in this paragraph, like, not just say may include, but list the boards we want them to come from.
If you want to specify who those things should be, John Radigan, if you just want to define the problem and walk away.
Not yours.
Or do you want to propose a solution?
Yeah, I think there should be a council member. Like, who he has here, I think is right, if you add the school board to it, and then maybe a couple of large members. I like at large, not just people that are on committees. It adds a different perspective.
Who appoints the other?
But, very good point, because we're talking school.
I didn't hear what Kevin said.
Who appoints the at-large? Because if we're talking school and town,
Defined here.
Why don't you let the CIP committee appoint the
well,
other?
CIP,
Can't be a member of any of the committees.
yeah. I like that.
Can't be somebody who's.
What
Right.
about solutions, or maybe two?
Two, yeah, I like two.
I like to, yeah.
Yeah.
That gets you back to an even number again.
Yeah, that's what.
Oh, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Have an appoint one, that gives you an odd number. Gives you 5.
Planning board, school board, town council, budget committee.
Budget committee. So it would either be one at large or three at large. And, you know, you're right. I would love it if it was three, but no, I'm having trouble having people volunteer for one might actually.
It's such a lot of work on that committee. That is tough.
Yeah, to do budget committee
Ooh,
and
CIP.
CIP.
CIP alone is a bear.
It said the statute 674-5 says it includes at least one member of the planning board and may include but not limited to other members of the planning board, the budget committee, or the town or city governing body.
Yeah.
Would the school be considered part of the city or
Does it say not limited to?
governing body?
So the CIP is supposed to cover a period of 6 years.
Is what?
6 years.
Yeah.
It's supposed to cover a projected period of 6 years.
Yeah. I guess
Could you read that again, Leo? What says this going to be?
as an alternative, the legislative body may authorize the governing body to appoint a capital improvement program committee who will include at least one member of the planning board and may include, but not limited to other members of the planning board, the budget committee or the town or city governing body.
Yeah.
Prepare and amend the recommended program for municipal capital improvements.
So it may include, but it's not limited to. So someone from the school board is not, could do it. Because it says not limited to, right? It may include, but not limited to.
May to other members of, well, that's just the planning board. May include but not limited to other members of the planning board, comma. Then they start talking the budget committee or the town or city governing body to prepare. So what you're saying is you think you want to have a school board appointee to it?
Well, if we're talking school board impact, like impact fees for the school, then having a school CIP, I think school board rep should probably be there. That's me. I mean, if we're talking school stuff, that's
I
always
think you're gonna have the superintendent as an ex officio member.
like the TA.
And it's not to say the school couldn't have its own CIP committee, right? If they wanted to tackle it, that seems kind
Yeah.
of redundant, but.
One of the ideas that people are working together.
Would it be worth talking to the superintendent or school board or whatever, and see what their feelings are on it? Or it's way out the window and
So the bad news is, you're supposed to be talking CIP. Good news is,
I think it's a good thing. I think the school's capital needs are so well defined at this point, it shouldn't be a big deal.
No, it should, they should.
Better define.
I mean, they definitely want impact fees. I'm sure they check with their attorney will tell me, yeah, you gotta have impact fees on
The last time somebody sat down and made a list of all the buildings in town owns, there's a lot. Town owns a lot of buildings.
Yeah, the council just got a list of all the parcels of land buildings. It just happened like 2 weeks ago.
The school district owns 2 buildings. I know where they are. I know what's happening. So,
Okay. So I'm inquiring of the superintendent how, if they would like to, and how they would like to participate on the CIP committee.
you're not asking whether he wants to.
What am I asking him?
You're asking him
The school's going to be part of it.
who they want,
According to the RSA.
how they want to handle the people that they have to appoint to it. Under the RSA, the RSA says it says.
So I'm going to go to the superintendent. The school is going to be part of the CIP. How do you want this to go down?
So that sounds a little argumentative.
This is a good thing.
I'll change that.
This is a good thing.
It's how do you want this to go down?
I'm here for the charter commission.
This is a good thing. There's lessons to be learned. The school has a good handle on its capital needs. This is another opportunity for them to ask for what they need.
You want to go out at 674-7?
No, I just, I've got it open on my screen, I'll just dump it in there.
No, no.
6747 is where it says the.
They shall respond to
We'll put
any
it right
request.
just like we do for.
Every affected school board, school district.
We're trying to reverse the impact of 30 years of neglect. But at least we understand that there's been 30 years of neglect.
All right, let's keep going, we can get through this by the end of the night.
Sorry.
So, Leo, is the parenthetical at the end of your comments, is that something we want to put in the charter, or are you just kind of giving us a little explanation? The part about the powers and duties of, oh, I'm sorry, I meant the wrong, sorry.
About what?
Never mind. I jumped ahead.
Water duty due.
Yeah, are we ready to talk about that?
Basically, the council has been talking about this for a couple of years, whatever, now they just don't seem to do. And, no, we talked about going to a village district and following good of it. If you go to the water and sewer utility district, you get basically 75% of the village district. The only thing that you don't get in a water utility district is you don't limit the voters voting on a budget for only water and sewer users. You still have everyone voting on the water and sewer budget. And I guess I would think unless the town attorney said he would supply us with some literature about how he thinks we should put something in the charter that would give the town council authority to okay a village district. I think we probably have to take him up on that suggestion.
I thought his comment was you already have, the council already has the authority to have a water and sewer district, so don't put it in the charter. I thought, I may have misinterpreted what he said.
That was my sense of the discussion.
I didn't think that. The statute for village district does say the selectmen or governing body, but the statute doesn't say it, so I guess I think if we were able to go to water service and get it started for a couple of years, then see how it makes out, then we could go the next step for the village district. And basically, the only difference would be, that you'd be limiting the voters to water and sewer uses. The council was talking, well, you were on the council, they talked about this. So for 2, 3, 4 years there, and then it sort of died. I think personally, if you look at the past experience of water and sewer commissioners, I mean, people would go on to boards that aren't as demanding as the town council, whatever. I mean, for sewer commissioners, we had 3 sewer commissioners, 2 who were on the board over 20 years, and 1 was on 15 years. So you get some seniority there that you don't seem to get on the council. It's just basically 3 years, and I've been a water commissioner the same way. So we have 15, 20 years people on the water commission. So, and I think, first I think you ought to have someone on the water sewer board. So, has some engineering experience, some technical experience, and whatever, which I don't think you really need on the council.
I'm totally in favor of having a water sewer. I'm totally in favor of having a water and sewer district. The only people that should vote for water and sewer stuff are people who are paying the bills for water and
It's
sewer.
not going to be easy, because I'm sure the water and sewer superintendent and whatnot not going to want another group to have to oversee them.
Yeah.
Right now, they're pretty well unregulated or whatever.
To me, I guess the question is this something that needs to be in the charter, or is it something that should be handled differently? And I don't know, John, what I think.
Well, I think if you try to do it through the council, I don't think it would ever pass. You'll have so much push on it. The council will just, they won't want to handle it. politically, it's
You
not
think so?
gonna be, not gonna be something that they're gonna wanna take, my view.
Yeah.
But doesn't that tell you something?
Hmm?
Doesn't that tell you something? If there's not enough impetus in the council to take this, to put this in effect, isn't that important information? I mean, to me, this is something that belongs in the council and not in the charter. I just don't feel like this is an idea that's fleshed out enough to understand all the implications of it, and it needs to be taken up in the council in the first instance. That's just my feeling on it.
I thought that the attorney said, so it's in the minutes, that we should put in just, a line or two that says, upon petition of 10 or more voters, so to enable a water district to be voted in the future.
Right. That the council has the authority to establish
That's it, right?
a district or whatever if they feel like that's appropriate, something like that.
I just don't think they talked about it for the last 3-4 years, and it just never gets traction, basically, because I don't think, I think politically it's gonna be a hot potato, and I would do it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that's a good reason for us to jump in
And put it in the charter, yeah.
and put it in the charter, right? But to take a topic that's maybe controversial, I don't know.
Well, say you put it in the charter, put it in the charter, everybody's gonna vote on it.
My fear
But I'm not
is-
sure, but people may not understand what they're voting on. I don't know. The council can do this if it feels like it's appropriate to do, and the voters can petition to have it done.
10 votes.
Right.
It only takes 10 signatures to start a district vote.
Right.
The other option is to put it on the warrant by petition.
Right.
Right, and detach it from the charter.
Right.
That's exactly. I'm concerned about putting it in the charter. I just don't feel like I understand this enough to put it in the charter and end whatever the discussion has been.
But I like John Rodriguez' idea that Tony just read, like the language on that, just like
Yeah.
sort of confirming.
I think one of the issues that, and I can't speak for the council as a whole, but one of the consistent debates has been, why should the town as a whole tell the users of water and sewer that we're going to increase rates when it doesn't affect the town as a whole?
Yeah.
The argument is it does, but I think there's enough, and should that kind of thing be addressed in the charter?
So the response to that is, we enable village districts, and if 10 ratepayers are mad, they need to sign a petition.
I don't have a problem with enabling language. I have a problem with establishing.
Right. Okay.
And the good news of doing that is it'll keep it in focus. If maybe that's not what a charter's for, but
I'll get 10 signatures for it in this council meeting. Just kidding about this.
I would go.
I mean, 10
Those
signatures.
processes are there. I don't think it should be in the charter.
Then do it, but don't tie it to the charter.
I mean, there are other ways to accomplish that. And my concern is, going back to a couple of conversations that we had about, and that's the other question maybe we can answer now, is how do we present this to the voters? My concern is this might be so controversial that by voting against this, they vote all the other good stuff away.
Personally, talk to people, I don't think this is controversial to the people, but I think it'll be controversial to the council.
Then it can be done by referendum, and it can be fleshed out separately from the
But
charter.
everybody you talk to seems to feel that, yes,
Yeah.
the people who are paying the water and sewer bill should be the people who are voting on. I mean, it's almost universal.
That's why I think
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I
have a
know.
problem putting it in the charter.
Well,
I agree with John.
I don't think it'll be controversial with the council either, because exactly what you just said, that everybody seems to think it makes sense. The people that should be voting on water and sewer are people who are water.
so what do you think it should be put in as a warrant article by itself?
We could, if you want to talk about it, we can talk about the council doing it, like,
The
get
council
that
can do it
now,
now on
With 10 signatures.
putting, I mean, without even,
without even a warrant.
Really? They changed the rate structure so that only.
Did it say, what's the RSA say?
No, no,
The village districts can do
Adopting-
to define what they do.
adopting Senate Bill 11, the legislative body or any city council shall have the authority by a majority vote to establish one or more water sewer districts to be the governing body to manage the district. So the legislative body of any city or town shall have the authority.
So the council,
Now,
And if you look at RSA 37.1, you can establish village districts for all kinds of purposes.
Yeah.
Or combinations of purposes.
Bug dusting?
3738.
We're looking at the bug dust. Bug dust committee.
Almost like it.
There's some committee for the study of subcommittees.
I'm all over
Straight out of the Department of Redundancy Department.
Ministry of
They update that, that's go, try to get.
I think the like, to me, it's escalation of force, right? You start with the council, if the council doesn't do it, then find a way to get there's a warrant article to make the town push it through.
So do we want to change E to an enabling?
Article 10 put it on as one article, they want to get the consensus of the people.
Exactly.
We'll throw some, yeah, I'll throw some in the language.
Or village district elsewhere in the chart?
I'll communicate with John about it, if you don't mind,
No,
figure out
no.
where we're supposed to go. We
Yes.
circulate a new red line charter before the next meeting,
Okay.
probably by Wednesday, so I started working with it tomorrow. June Wednesday, I'm gonna hear it.
I'm sending an email to you, John, right now.
To take that, I'm sorry if I missed this, but the, section 3.4 qualification. One of the things that we talked about was training of council members, and I didn't see it really a place where you might add that.
I gave up on that a long time.
Oh.
Everybody kind of crapped on it, so.
But I can tell you, it was a question on the questionnaire.
Yep, and all the questions are responding, yes, they would love it. So
Yeah, I got one all capitals, exclamation point.
I mean, I think it's complicated when you start to, like, what would the training be, who would provide the training, and those are questions that
I'm not sure there is training.
have to.
LGC does.
For councilors, they do. it for
They may not be specific for counselors, but they give so many trainings, like the budgeting one that the counselor should go to. Because if you,
Another new ZBA and planning board, because I've been to the ZBA training.
Budget.
I went to their moderator one. Right.
And we had talked about training being provided by the town.
Yeah, it will be through the LTC.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be in here, though.
I'm not sure that needs to be in the charter. What happens if your council refuses to do it?
Boom.
I mean, if you have a council that refuses to, if it's provided locally, and if they refuse to go to training, then my question is going to be, what are you doing?
Yeah, the idea is to provide opportunities for accountability to the voters. And so it requires somebody else that's running against them and say, look, this person was elected and they never went to training. Don't vote for them. Vote for me. I'll go training. I went to training anyway because I wanted to do it. I mean, like you said, we can only give the voters so much, and we're trying to give them accountability. And so we're giving them these pathways to develop accountability. We can't do everything, but we can help.
And that's a good subject for the council. If they believe strongly in it, they should direct the town administrator, or every council that comes forward, that they're going to receive some comprehensive training. I think Steve said he's going to do it.
And the council should hold itself accountable to that too.
Yeah, 3.8.
Yeah, just looking at that, I just highlighted that. Good old John Madigan, 3.8. There is no discussion in the charter about the distinction between ordinances and resolutions.
Well, that's
You're right, John.
Yes. You take that up.
And? I'll call him tomorrow and say, so what are you proposing? What are you,
Well, he explained the differences.
did he? Was I paying attention?
Apparently not.
But he's saying there's no discussion in the charter about it. Okay.
All right, so basically, so do you want to add that to the list of questions? Can
Yeah.
you provide some insight on differences?
Can you tell us what you're talking about?
Yeah. Let's
What do you propose? You learn this when you start out practicing law. If you walk into your boss's office with a problem, without the solution, you're gonna be sent right back out again. Go find the solution.
What RSA covers master plans?
Resolution 674.
Clay wrote that statute.
Does the 674 mandate the officer should be revised?
What?
The 674 mandate revision?
It doesn't mandate, but it suggests them. That was one of
Every
the
10 years.
changes. To statute.
What we got to do is check every year.
I recommend it every 5 to 10 years.
Is it something we would want to codify? I don't mean open a can of worms in 925, but when I look at the master plan, there are lots of, and I didn't know where like in here this would fall. There are many chapters that seem to be older than 10 years.
Oh, yeah, there are.
So even though we're trying, and I know that it's with the best of intentions, having some sort of codification requiring it might actually force a reprioritization to sure it's done.
Again, getting back to the town administrator's responsibility. I mean, he's bringing the chairs of these boards together, together whatever we said. But again, that sounds like one of their responsibilities to make sure that
Yeah,
I identify the chair that.
It's just that it's hard, like we're trying to force the long-term view, and that when a master plan,
Oh, can I make a suggestion?
well,
What if you and Al work on it while you're working on the fiscal plan thing?
I'll take it.
All right. And we can have it for the 23rd?
Yeah.
All right. And are we going to go over 22 Didn't we decide to call it the 22?
Oh, great. The Weinstein Amendment.
Yeah.
So these assignments, we don't discuss on vacation, we just do them?
What?
Yes.
Just do them.
Just do as the chair says. What he needs you.
You've got the John Radigan version, you don't have the one that has this change. I put your language, does everybody have the version that's telling you?
Yeah. 3.8 proposed budget.
3.8C. I put in your changes, Tony. I don't know.
I don't have it.
Oh, in your draft. Let me see what that
This is supposed to be up now, don't look over here.
is. Look away.
Look away, look away.
Yes.
You sure
So
this
they
is the
should
version
say,
of Johnson?
no, that's not the version for Johnson. This is-
It's the revision 9/13/13.
Right, the one that came from John doesn't have it.
Okay,
And this
I have it
one,
on this
All I
one.
look for is the newspapers.
This is,
It says newspaper.
this is like the Northwest
Oh, yeah,
Council.
they're not missing
This is the language that she proposed verbatim. This is what I sent out the other day, and then the other thing came in from John this morning, they're not the same. Because I didn't have time. to-
Because he didn't have, yeah, he didn't have some of your stuff, right?
I did.
I swear I did the last one.
there. I thought I did too, I just for whatever reason, it's making too much, but yeah.
That's exactly what you said, I just copied it and pasted it.
Read it out loud. So we don't have it.
After passage of the ordinance's first reading, it shall be published at least once together with a notice of the time and place when and where it will be given in public hearing and be considered for final passage. First such publication shall precede the date of said hearing by 7 days. Publication for purposes of this section, this is the part that matters, shall mean the publication of a notice in any paper distributed in the town of Newmarket, as well as the posting of the notice process will help. And at least 2 other public venues as the town council may designate, stating the number and title of the ordinance in either the text of the ordinance in full or if the full text is not published. Is this what I said?
This is, Tony, I copied it and pasted it out of your email. I didn't change the word, of it, except I changed Merrimack to Newmarket.
And I thought it was so well written.
I just scraped
It also changes, at least the version I have here, changes it from 5 days to 7.
Change it to from 5 business days to 7 calendar days. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I think it's the same.
And it's more than just a newspaper venue, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Two
two
other
other,
public venues.
2 other public venues as well as.
which I would guess would be the bulletin board, the town hall, and the post office, for starters.
Well, the website is,
Right. Is that a little bit?
Yep.
Right.
And then the last thing we did talk about is the annual meeting between the council and the school board.
Right,
Okay,
that was the second one, if you remember.
yeah.
The second ones.
It's-
Kind of the 3/5 compromise, northwest compromise. Wines and,
All right,
There you go.
we did it. We went through everything at least once. We made great progress. Does anybody have any other questions, comments, or concerns? We've asked Attorney Radigan to attend the next meeting and confirm that with him. That was in the minutes of the last meeting. I have a list of questions and concerns I'm going to try and get through. Do I still need to, are we done with the issue of town manager? I don't need to deal with that anymore, right? Okay. So what is the compensation for the town treasurer? Send the latest changes to Attorney Radigan, highlight those changes that we made based on, that are different than what he saw before. John, what the heck are you talking about with respect to ordinances versus resolutions? The school is going to be a part of the CIP. We really want your involvement. Would you be okay with that? How would you like to have that person appointed rather than
I wanted to go
how do you
down.
want it to go down? And then the question. and then
easy way to do this,
exactly what it sounds like.
we can do good cop, bad cop.
First meeting's with me, second one's with Chief Sear.
My favorite variation of that is bad cop, worse cop.
All right, did I miss anything?
we had a question last week about how we present to the voters.
Oh, that's right.
And I think that's needs to be answered.
This.
Whether it's all or nothing.
All or none, or section,
Right.
bite-sized chunks.
Right.
That's an outstanding question, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
All right, I got it. Okay, so we are on for next Monday, a regularly scheduled meeting, and by then I think we should have a good, solid completion.
There will be a new updated red line.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm gonna consolidate stuff.
Chris says I can work on it already. so-
I'll talk to John at some point about,
I already said, you know, the John.
okay.
All right, motion?
So move to adjourn.
Thank you. Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.